The son of Zeus, Alexander the Great. He claimed to be immortal, then died at 32.
In the sweltering heat of Babylon in June 323 BC, a 32-year-old king lay dying within the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II. He had marched his army over 11,000 miles from Greece to India, forged an empire spanning roughly 2 million square miles, and remained undefeated in over a decade of brutal warfare. As his generals gathered around his bed, desperate to know who would inherit the Earth's largest dominion, they asked to whom he would leave his empire. According to historical tradition, through the haze of a severe fever, Alexander whispered, "To the strongest." This single utterance guaranteed the immediate fragmentation of the ancient world's greatest superpower, yet it perfectly encapsulated the fiercely competitive spirit of the man who spoke it. Alexander III of Macedon, recognized globally as Alexander the Great, was born in the capital city of Pella around July 20, 356 BC. By birthright, he was Macedonian royalty, by education, a cultured Greek, and by design, a global sovereign. His primary field of influence was military leadership, geopolitical conquest, and imperial administration. Alexander is considered one of history's most fundamentally influential figures because he systematically dismantled the seemingly invincible Achaemenid Persian Empire, founded over 20 new cities across 3 continents, and initiated the Hellenistic period. This sweeping era spanned nearly 3 centuries, allowing Greek culture, language, and philosophical thought to dominate the Mediterranean and Near East. The world into which Alexander was born was defined by violent political maneuvering and regional warfare. His father, King Philip II of Macedon, was a brilliant military innovator who transformed Macedon into the dominant military power of the Greek peninsula. His mother, Olympias, a fiery princess from Epirus, was deeply immersed in mystic cults and fiercely ambitious for her son. The royal court at Pella was inherently dangerous, characterized by political assassinations and strict martial expectations. From a young age, Alexander displayed exceptional physical courage and intellectual curiosity. According to Plutarch, at age 12 or 13, Alexander famously tamed a massive, unmanageable horse named Bucephalus by realizing the animal was merely terrified of its own moving shadow, a psychological feat seasoned generals had completely failed to accomplish. Alexander's mind and character were heavily shaped by 2 colossal forces: the martial genius of his father and the philosophical tutelage of Aristotle. In 343 BC, King Philip II hired Aristotle to tutor the 13-year-old prince at the Temple of the Nymphs in Mysia. For 3 years, Aristotle instructed Alexander in philosophy, morals, medicine, and logic. Most fatefully, Aristotle gifted the young prince an annotated copy of Homer's Iliad. Alexander carried this text on all his military campaigns, sleeping with it tucked beneath his pillow, alongside a dagger. He profoundly identified with Achilles, adopting a worldview driven by pothos, a restless, insatiable longing to achieve the impossible. Furthermore, observing his father's creation of the Macedonian phalanx, an infantry formation armed with the sarissa, a devastating 18-foot pike, provided Alexander the unparalleled military machine he would soon unleash upon the world. Alexander's transition from royal heir to recognized military commander occurred in 338 BC at the pivotal Battle of Chaeronea. At 18 years old, Philip entrusted him with commanding the left wing of the Macedonian army. Alexander fearlessly led a crushing cavalry charge that broke the sacred band of thieves, securing Macedonian hegemony over Greece. His true ascension came abruptly. In 336 BC, King Philip II was assassinated by a royal bodyguard. At 20, Alexander seized the throne. He swiftly executed rivals who could legitimately challenge his rule. When several Greek city-states rebelled, falsely assuming the young king was weak, Alexander responded with terrifying speed and brutality. In 335 BC, he razed the ancient city of Thebes to the ground, slaughtering 6,000 citizens and 30,000 more into slavery. Greece was silenced. Alexander's undisputed reign had truly begun. The breakthrough moment that propelled Alexander from a regional king to an international conqueror occurred in November 333 BC at the Battle of Issus. After crossing the Hellespont into Asia in 334 BC with an army of roughly 40,000 to 50,000 soldiers, he won an initial victory at the Granicus River. At Issus, he faced the great king of Persia, Darius III, and an army that significantly outnumbered his own forces. Through brilliant tactical maneuvering and personally leading a wedge-shaped cavalry charge directly at the Persian king's chariot, Alexander shattered the enemy lines. Darius fled in panic, leaving behind his mother, wife, and daughters, whom Alexander treated with profound respect and royal dignity. Issus proved the colossal Persian Empire was vulnerable. It broke Persian control of the Mediterranean coast, flooded Alexander's treasury with captured wealth, and signaled that an unstoppable force had arrived. Following Issus, Alexander embarked on an unbroken streak of conquests. In 332 BC, he besieged the island city of Tyre for 7 exhausting months, engineering a massive half-mile earthen causeway through the ocean to breach its walls, a siege resulting in 8,000 dead Tyrians and 30,000 enslaved. Later that same year, he entered Egypt and was crowned pharaoh. In April 331 BC, he founded Alexandria, which rapidly became the intellectual capital of the ancient world. The decisive blow against Persia came on October 1, 331 BC, at the Battle of Gaugamela. Facing an army estimated between 50,000 and 100,000 strong, Alexander utilized a complex echelon formation and routed Darius once again. By 330 BC, he captured Persepolis, eventually burning its sprawling palaces to the ground, an act debated by historians as a drunken accident or calculated revenge. He then marched into Central Asia, fighting grueling guerrilla wars. Finally, in 326 BC, he fought his last major pitched battle at the Hydaspes River against King Porus, adding another vast kingdom to his empire. Alexander remains famous for his unprecedented record as a military commander who never lost a single battle over 15 years, despite frequently fighting superior numbers and enduring grueling terrain. His tactical brilliance lay in anticipating enemy movements and flawlessly coordinating heavy infantry, light skirmishers, and shock cavalry. Beyond warfare, his enduring fame stems from his highly controversial policy of cultural fusion. Unlike previous conquerors who merely extracted financial tribute, Alexander actively sought to merge Greek and Persian cultures. He encouraged intermarriage, orchestrating massive mass weddings at Susa in 324 BC, where 10,000 soldiers married Persian women, and integrated Persian troops directly into his elite Macedonian units. His name became immortalized because he aggressively pushed the boundaries of the known Western world to the edges of India. As a human being, Alexander was a startling paradox of extreme rationality and volatile emotional intensity. He was intensely disciplined in military planning, yet frequently succumbed to extreme binge drinking, a common cultural trait of the Macedonian elite. He possessed a genuinely inquisitive mind, bringing botanists and geographers on his campaigns to mathematically document new species and map unknown landscapes, demonstrating Aristotle's enduring influence. However, he was deeply superstitious and increasingly megalomaniacal. As he conquered the East, he began viewing himself as a living deity. Following a visit to the Oracle of Siwa in 332 BC, he promoted the belief that he was the literal son of Zeus Ammon. His leadership style was remarkably charismatic. He maintained fierce loyalty by fighting on the front lines, suffering severe injuries, including a nearly fatal arrow strike to the lung during the Malian campaign in 325 BC. Yet this supreme confidence often mutated into dangerous paranoia. Alexander's legacy is heavily scarred by profound failures, controversies, and a descent into violence. His attempt to adopt Persian court customs, specifically proskynesis, the physical act of bowing before the king, deeply offended his egalitarian Macedonian veterans, sparking dangerous mutinies. In a drunken, blind rage in 328 BC, Alexander murdered Clitus the Black with a spear, a trusted general who had personally saved his life at the Bunitis. He also executed his top general Parmenion on highly questionable treason charges. His greatest strategic failure was the mutiny of his own army at the Hyphasis River in 326 BC. Utterly exhausted and terrified by rumors of thousands of Indian war elephants, his men simply refused to march further east. On the return journey in 325 BC, he stubbornly led his army directly through the desolate Gedrosian desert. This poorly planned march resulted in the agonizing deaths of 12,000 to 40,000 soldiers and camp followers from thirst and starvation, heavily criticized today as a punitive measure against his mutinous troops. Alexander the Great fundamentally reshaped the long-term trajectory of human history. Politically, his aggressive conquests violently annihilated the Achaemenid Empire and temporarily created a unified geopolitical zone stretching from Greece to the Punjab. After his sudden death at age 32 in June 323 BC, his vast empire immediately fractured into powerful Hellenistic kingdoms ruled by his top generals, known as the Diadochi. Economically, he established highly lucrative trade routes connecting the Mediterranean with Asia and standardized silver coinage. The forceful spread of Greek culture, art, and language, Hellenization, left an indelible mark. Koine Greek rapidly became the dominant lingua franca of the Middle East, eventually becoming the exact language of the original Christian New Testament centuries later. In art, the unprecedented syncretism of Greek and Asian visual styles literally birthed Greco-Buddhist art, which profoundly influenced the physical depiction of the Buddha. Today, over 2,300 years later, Alexander the Great is universally remembered as the archetypal conqueror. For millennia, leaders ranging from Julius Caesar to Napoleon Bonaparte have obsessively studied his tactical maneuvers. He passed from recorded history into global legend almost immediately. The Alexander Romance, a sprawling collection of fantastical myths regarding his exploits, became widely read in late antiquity, translated into dozens of languages. However, his modern legacy remains deeply polarized. While traditional European history views him as a heroic visionary who brought Western civilization to the East, Persian and Zoroastrian traditions have historically remembered him as Alexander the Accursed, the ruthless destroyer of their temples, ancient texts, and magnificent empire. He remains a subject of intense academic debate, viewed simultaneously as a genius of statecraft, an unparalleled tactician, and a bloodthirsty imperialist. Alexander the Great lived for a mere 32 years, yet the sheer velocity and scale of his life permanently altered the political, linguistic, and cultural topography of the globe. His narrative is far more than a simple chronological catalogue of ancient battles. It is a profound, illuminating study of the absolute limits of human ambition. Alexander successfully demonstrated how unwavering self-belief, coupled with undeniable tactical genius, can dismantle centuries-old empires and bridge disparate worlds. However, his descent into violent paranoia and the immediate, bloody collapse of his unified empire serve as a stark, timeless warning about the inherent fragility of total power centralized within a single, flawed mortal. He burned through human history like a massive meteor, brilliant, devastating, and entirely impossible to ignore, leaving behind a radically transformed world, forever shadowed by his colossal, unyielding ambition.